We're going to focus first on putting a great full board in place. I expect us to make a lot of progress on that in the coming months. And then after that, the new board will take a look at the governance structure. But I think we debated both.
What does that mean? Should OpenAI be a traditional Silicon Valley for-profit company?
We will never be a traditional company, but the structure, I think we should take a look at the structure. Maybe the answer we have now is right, but I think we should be willing to consider other things, but I think this is not the time for it, and the focus on the board first. And then we'll go look at it from all angles. The board did that. I was like, I think this is wild, super confused, super caught off guard, but this is the structure. And I immediately just went to go thinking about what I was going to do next. It was not until some board members called me the next morning that I even thought about really coming back.
OpenAI began as a nonprofit dream, an alliance of idealists, billionaires, and scientists determined to build artificial intelligence for humanity's benefit. But as their technology advanced, so too did the compromises. The company took corporate funding, built secretive models, and allied itself with Microsoft. By 2022, ChatGPT had become the fastest-growing app in history, and Sam Altman, once a scrappy founder living on instant noodles, had become one of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley. But in November 2023, everything seemed to collapse. On the morning of November 17, 2023, Sam Altman was scheduled to join a video call with OpenAI's board of directors. He expected a routine check-in. Instead, he was blindsided. The board, looking cold and serious, informed him that he was being removed as CEO effective immediately. There was no build-up, no negotiation. One moment, Altman was the face of the most talked-about company in the world. The next, he was gone. Within hours, OpenAI released a carefully worded statement. It claimed that Altman had not been consistently candid in his communications with the board. The phrase was vague but heavy. It implied dishonesty, mistrust, even betrayal. Journalists swarmed the story. Social media exploded with theories. Was this about personal rivalries? Financial misconduct? A cover-up about AI safety? Nobody knew. For Altman, it was a stunning reversal. Just days earlier, he had been addressing world leaders, describing AI as the most transformative invention in human history. Now he was locked out of his company email, exiled from the very organization he had built. To understand how this could happen, you have to understand OpenAI's unusual structure. Unlike almost every other tech giant, OpenAI wasn't controlled by shareholders. It wasn't a conventional startup chasing quarterly profits, at least not officially. Instead, it was governed by a nonprofit board whose mission was to ensure AI was developed safely for humanity's benefit. This board technically outranked everyone, including the CEO. If they believed the mission was being compromised, they could pull the plug on anyone. And in November 2023, that's exactly what they did. The board at the time included just 6 people. Among them were Adam D'Angelo, the founder of Quora, Helen Toner, an academic researcher, Tasha McCauley, an entrepreneur, and most crucially, Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist of OpenAI and one of its original co-founders. These were not traditional venture capitalists or profit-driven executives. They were policy experts, scientists, and safety advocates. And many of them believed Altman had become too focused on growth, too eager to commercialize, and too willing to sideline the nonprofit mission. The tension between speed and safety. This was not a new conflict. It reflected a deeper divide that runs through the entire AI industry: speed versus safety. On one side were the accelerationists, those who argued that releasing AI quickly would unleash innovation and create immense wealth. They believed delays were dangerous because rivals like Google, Meta, or China would seize the lead. On the other side were the safety advocates who warned that rushing ahead risked catastrophic consequences. They pointed to hallucinations, misinformation, deep fakes, and the long-term risk of machines outpacing human control. Sam Altman was the archetypal accelerationist. He talked about AI curing all diseases, ending poverty, and ushering in an age of abundance. He believed in moving fast, raising billions, and scaling relentlessly. But for the board, speed looked reckless. To them, Altman's vision was inspiring, but also dangerous. If OpenAI lost sight of its mission, They believed the consequences could extend far beyond any one company. And so, in a dramatic act of defiance, they tried to stop him. The fallout was immediate and unprecedented. Employees inside OpenAI were stunned. For many, Altman wasn't just a CEO. He was the heart of the company, the one who attracted funding, secured partnerships, and gave OpenAI its global presence. Within 48 hours, more than 700 of the company's 770 employees signed an open letter demanding Altman's reinstatement. If he wasn't brought back, they warned, they would resign and join him at Microsoft, which had already offered him the chance to lead a brand new AI division. The threat was staggering, nearly the entire company walking out overnight. Investors panicked. Microsoft, which had already invested billions into OpenAI, was blindsided. CEO Satya Nadella scrambled to contain the crisis, making it clear that his support was firmly behind Altman. Meanwhile, the board went silent. Their statement about Altman being not consistently candid raised more questions than answers. Was he lying about product safety, about partnerships, about side projects like WorldCoin and his chip-making ventures? Nobody knew. In the absence of clarity, speculation filled the void.
6 days, 3 CEOs, and countless resignations later, Sam Altman is back in charge of one of the world's most powerful AI innovators. The employees are back too, and there's a completely new board of directors. The exact thing that caused this fissure within the company to rip wide open is still unknown. But we know a lot about what was bubbling, shifting below the surface. And we can start to piece together how and why the man famous for bringing ChatGPT to the world fell so far, but climbed back even higher.
Within days, the board's position began to collapse. Altman, once ousted, suddenly looked invincible. Employees rallied to him. Investors rallied to him. Microsoft openly embraced him. The board, on the other hand, looked isolated and weak. Even Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist who had sided with them, began to regret his decision. In a stunning reversal, he posted on social media, "I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions." Without Ilya, the coup lost its legitimacy. The board fractured, and 5 days after being removed, Sam Altman returned as CEO of OpenAI.
This all blows up when OpenAI's board fires its star CEO, Sam Altman, with no warning and a very vague explanation. Silicon Valley is shocked. Microsoft, its biggest investor, apparently got only a 1-minute heads up, and its stock, as a company that poured billions into OpenAI, starts to plummet. Day 2. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella is working behind the scenes, trying to get the OpenAI board to reinstate Altman. Altman himself even returns to the office, snapping a viral selfie of his guest pass. But those talks fail. The board stands firm. Altman's co-founder, Greg Brockman, resigns in solidarity. Day 3. OpenAI replaces Altman with the former CEO of Twitch, Emmett Shear. And Microsoft says, fine, we're taking Altman. He's installed as the head of Microsoft's brand new AI lab, and some top OpenAI talent say they are going with him. Day 4, the tide turns. More than 700 OpenAI employees, which is like 90% of them, threaten to quit if Altman isn't reinstated. And Ilya Sutskever, one of the board members who pushed Altman out, he changes his mind. He now regrets his involvement and says he never meant to hurt OpenAI. Day 5, everyone hunkers down. Investors, board members, Altman himself. This is a catastrophe, and everyone is working on a plan to avoid a mass exodus and what could be the complete collapse of OpenAI. Day 6, not even a full week after this all started, Altman's triumphant return to OpenAI as CEO. There is a new board, and everyone that left with him comes back too.
The announcement coming overnight and capping off a week of chaos since he was removed from the company that he co-founded.
So if that's what the earthquake looked like on the surface, what was going on below ground?
The directors who had opposed him resigned. The company's structure was reshaped. The attempted coup had failed, and Altman had emerged more powerful than before. What did it all mean? The bizarre episode left behind more questions than answers. Why had the board really acted? Some believed it was personal that Altman had clashed with Helen Toner after she published research praising OpenAI's rival, Anthropic. Others believed it was financial, that the board distrusted Altman's pursuit of massive funding for side ventures. But the most chilling theory was safety. Some insiders whispered that Ilya Sutskever had seen something inside OpenAI's latest models, something that alarmed him. The memes spread across the internet. What did Ilya see? Was there a breakthrough that hinted at artificial general intelligence? A behavior in the models that spooked researchers? Or simply a mounting fear that the company was sprinting toward an uncertain future with no brakes? We may never know for sure, but the fact remains, the board tried to stop Altman, and they failed.
In almost every company, the board of directors and the executive leadership team are generally on the same page. They're at least working towards the same goal, making money. But from the very start, OpenAI had a very different vision. AI was thought to be such a world-changing piece of technology that OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit back in 2015. It was meant to be a counterweight to big private companies like Google or Amazon, with the goal of developing, quote, safe and beneficial AI, free from the pressures of share prices and the stock market, with development being, well, out in the open.
The OpenAI coup was more than Silicon Valley drama. It was a glimpse into a much larger struggle, the question of who controls artificial intelligence. History is full of moments when humanity struggled to contain new technologies. The Manhattan Project birthed nuclear weapons and left the world scrambling for arms treaties. The internet promised freedom of information, but also enabled surveillance, disinformation, and monopolies. AI may combine elements of both. It is knowledge, weapon, and network rolled into one. And unlike nuclear bombs, AI cannot be contained behind locked doors. Once the code exists, it can spread. Once the models are trained, they can be copied, modified, and unleashed. That's why the OpenAI board acted. They believed they were holding back a tide that could overwhelm humanity.
Thanks, Sam, for coming.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, always happy to have you. Is there anybody who's not happy to have you?
You must be bored of this talk after the 4th year in a row, or whatever it's been. But it's fun to be here.
So, I'd love to start we've had multiple conversations along this line. Imagine the world beyond 2035, so 2035 to 2050 kind of period, to be vague enough about the time frame. What do you think the world looks like?
I mean, I think people will still be like sitting around eating lunch together. So in some sense, like,
Will they be working?
but I do think the rate of technological change in that period will be difficult to have It is difficult to have a current framework for it. It's very hard to make like precise predictions, like, oh, it'll be, the Dyson sphere will be getting built, or we will have like figured out nanobots, or, but many things like that, I think will be really quite different. So maybe the human experience doesn't change that much. Like, evolution takes a long time. Biology is like baked in very strong drives over a very long period. But in terms of what's like possible in the like tech stack and what one person can get done, that feels like it will be very different.
But tides are difficult to stop. While OpenAI battled internally, competitors surged forward. Google was accelerating its Bard and Gemini projects. Anthropic, founded by defectors from OpenAI, positioned itself as the safety-first alternative. In China, entire cities were being funded as national AI hubs. The race was global. The stakes existential. Sam Altman's resurrection. When the dust settled, Altman stood stronger than ever. Microsoft deepened its partnership. OpenAI pushed ahead with new models, new products, new deals. But the fundamental questions remained unresolved. Was the board right to worry? Was Altman too reckless? Could humanity balance progress with caution? Or were we destined to repeat the same pattern, chasing innovation faster than we could control it? Even today, those questions hang over OpenAI. The coup was not just a failed boardroom drama, It was a warning flare, a reminder that even among the creators of this technology, there is deep fear about where it's heading. The rise, fall, and return of Sam Altman is more than a corporate saga. It is a parable for the age of AI, a reminder that technology is never separate from power. OpenAI began with utopian ideals to build artificial intelligence openly, safely, and for the benefit of all. Less than a decade later, it is a for-profit company allied with one of the richest corporations in the world and led by a CEO whose power seems unshakable. The board tried to resist. They tried to put the brakes on, and they failed. Now, as AI grows more powerful with every passing month, the question isn't just whether Sam Altman can control it, the question is whether anyone can. Because if machines truly surpass us, then the story of OpenAI may be remembered not as the tale of Sam Altman, but as the prologue to something much bigger.